say a couple things, and then there's Melanie on the screen here. You all should recognize her. She had little Alice, so this is her second child. So we're glad that occurred. So let me welcome you. We had a great, if you haven't done the master classes, we've had 3. Yesterday we had Peter Buffett, Warren Buffett's son, and it was magnificent. The whole theme was we're all born into a story. How do you navigate that story? The great parts and the other parts. And Jim McClung and I were on the thing, and he quoted a famous man, me, on that. No, he said something about it. Anyway, it was great with Peter Buffett. We have another one coming up in 2 weeks on resilience, but you should do that. These are limited numbers of people, and you get a good chance to interact. Second thing I want to say, Rick, who is going to be doing the interviewing today, is doing this Path North Library, and I just watched one of the interviews, and they're really, really good. I urge you to do this if you've never thought of being interviewed, and for your family and for yourself. And Rick is so good, and you get a chance to have the last editorial control over this thing, but it is really powerful. So I'd urge you to reach out to Rick. I guess that's how we do this, Rick. Do they talk to you directly? Is there somebody else on our
team? Through Seth.
Okay, reach out to Seth and he'll hook you up on this thing. Okay, so today the theme is kind of about story, because Rick's going to be this great project that he'll tell you about he's been doing is pretty magnificent. Big, but he has one of his superstar young people who happens to go to Georgetown and is Canadian, and he's going to have a chance to interview her. But let me say a couple things about story before we start. On December 26, 2004, one of the largest tsunamis in history occurred in the Indian Ocean, and it killed hundreds of thousands of people. In that same region, I was struck by finding on one island, there was not one casualty, even though they had a large populace. When you start digging into it, what happened was one of the elders of an Aborigine tribe on that remote island, he started noticing strange tide movement. He started seeing movement of animals, monkeys, all kinds of things. And they started behaving really differently. And he realized that, according to oral history there, this was a sign that something really bad in the environment was going to go on a tsunami. And because of that, he was able to protect all of his people, and they all went up. Not a single life was lost. Stories actually can save our lives. So stories are really important for a lot of reasons. The author of Peter Pan, J.M. Barrie, he said this, which is kind of interesting. The life of every man or woman is a diary in which he means to write one story and writes another. And in his humblest hours, when he compares the volume as it is with what he had vowed to make it. So in Path North, we talk about being authentic. So we have one story we're hoping to write. Another story, some of us didn't ask for certain things that kind of occurred in our stories, but they become a rich part of our stories if we'll allow them to. So with that, let me turn it over to Rick, the ultimate storyteller. Rick's a dear friend. We met in 1979 in Oxford when we were both students, and he was doing a PhD at Oriel College in arms control, and which, as I always joke and say, that perfectly prepared him to be a filmmaker, which is what he's done his whole life. He's made lots and lots of feature films and documentaries and won all kinds of awards. And I'm so proud of him. He's a huge talent. And but he's been working on some really interesting projects that really got into our meeting space. And we're delighted that Rick has joined us in Path North as a senior fellow, and he's working on this human library project. So he's going to interview Emily, who is wonderful, and we're looking forward to that. So Rick, take it away, brother.
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, just further on to the story thing. Things have been so amazing for me to learn through this process of collecting stories.
Hey, Rick, you were cut off, or you're frozen in time. Rick, can you hear me? Rick?
I believe Rick fell off, Doug.
Okay.
I can introduce myself if we want.
Yes, and I do, and I have a video that we are queuing up as well to get Rick back on. So Emily, if you don't mind doing a self-intro.
Sounds perfect. My name is Emily Hardy. I am a sophomore at Georgetown University with a major in international politics and minor in women and gender studies. I met Rick when I was 12 years old. I'm currently 18, so I mean, it feels like a long time in my life. I'm Canadian. There's not too much else you've got to know about me. The film will tell you a lot more that you would need to know. It's such an honor to be here, though, and thank you so much for making the time to talk to young people and hear our voices. It's such an honor, so thank you so much.
Great, Emily. So let's now pivot, Seth, to this film we want to watch before we start the formal interview. If we ever get Rick back. But Emily, I'll be a week on second stand-in if I have to be to interview you. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Here comes the video, Dad.
I'm Emily Hardy.
How old are you?
12.
And where are you from?
Vancouver, BC, Canada. I have a science test tomorrow. We have to memorize like a 990-word monologue. And I'm attending the ISCA speech competition, and I have to memorize my speech on mental illness. I have a writing course that's on Thursday. I have to finish my pieces, and I'm not even close. So I'm looking forward to this 2 weeks. I feel like I have to do good. I'd like to go to Harvard, but knowing me and my marks, I work hard, but I don't know, I'm not amazing. They say I'm a leader, and I don't think I would be if it wasn't for my little sister and the divorce. During the divorce, my mom was hurt, my dad was angry, and they were off in their own little hate bubbles. So I was there for Abby when she broke down more than me. They say they're doing great. I, however, have a very different opinion. Last year, I kind of just cracked. There was lots of school pressure, divorce pressure, all that jazz. Yeah, I had clinical depression because of it. I think one day I just got my head around the fact that my parents aren't getting back together. There's no way it's happening. And then it just solved the problem.
Describe each member of your family using one word.
Abby, interesting. Mom, I love her, but she's a little bit overprotective as I'm getting older. Dad, he's good at winning. Like, he's good at getting what he wants. I have a ton of stuff to study right now. These are all my exam outlines. And then that's all the things that I have to do when I think I have no homework. So my French teacher posts vocab words, so then I go through all the vocab. Socials and science, just go over textbook and notes, and then 5 minutes of math review, and then practice writing an English paragraph, and then water my cactus. This year, I haven't won a thing. It started off with me running for something called Service Council, and I lost. It would not be this bad if I had just been elected to that council, but I lost the council. I received all B's. I studied for a test, and I And by my standards, I flunked it. There's no way that I can improve my grade unless I get smarter or I learn the material better. But last night I was up till like midnight studying it because I try hard and I haven't seen the results. No one knows what it's like to be in my identical situation. It's confusing and it's hard.
And you've got all these awards up here.
So that's when I went to Kiwanis and I competed for an individual, like a poem that I wrote.
Yeah?
And then I competed in a skit.
You remember one line of the poem?
Oh, I remember the whole poem. It's memorized. Sail away. Sail away from the misery. Gone, left in the dust. Moving through the 7 seas, your boat beginning to rust. Time seems a handful of days, yet far too long to remember. The once burning fire in your heart is now reduced to an ember. Rinse your hands in the blue, let waves wash away the pain. Yet see the pink horizon, let it show you what you have to gain. North is the mountains, south is the flocks. East is the grasslands, and west the land of rocks. People need to know the world, so travel far and wide. But if you remember one last thing, it's to keep peace inside. Call off into the world of stars above. Let your message be carried on the wing of a dove. In your wake there may be worry, the love will turn to fear. But I know you fled from terror, it drove you off of here. Yet always know that land is not far. I'll be waiting on the shore, so follow the stars. In your old rusty boat, go quickly, carry hope. Because the world is big, and you are small. Oceans deep, and mountains tall. Navigate the world and chart the seas. The sound of waves will put you at ease. So sail away, sail away, sail away.
So this was how I did 10 days to publish a book. So I wrote Phoenix in 10 days because I needed to get it out there before, and I needed to put it on my update to Harvard that I was writing a book. 193 poems, that was the goal. I ended up writing way more.
The cave is everything that I am afraid to do. I am afraid to be alone. I am afraid to fail. I am afraid to be unloved. I used to go to school at like 8 on Monday. Then I'd come home, and then I'd do a bunch of homework up till like 11:30. I fall asleep by like 12. But then I'm up by 6 the next morning for basketball. And then I go to school, and then I had a basketball game, and then I would go to soccer till like 9:30 at night. I had like a mental breakdown like 5 weeks ago. I walked into English class, like I just didn't know that we had to read this chapter. I can't believe I forgot it because I was doing so much stuff. So I just sat there and I just started to cry. I think people see me as being a lot more put together than I think I am. I'm kind of a high stress person.
Really?
I didn't know.
Is it possible you're distracting yourself from something you need to pay attention to?
I feel like I have to fight, because like if I don't, I'll get sad. I fill my time up so that I can't be sad. Because when I'm busy and I'm doing a lot of stuff, like you don't have the time to be sad. And yeah, but I like all the stuff that I do. Yeah. When I win, I'm always like, okay, what's next? And my mom's like, just enjoy it, right? So I'm always, I think, looking for that next level of external validation.
But if winning only brings you temporary satisfaction, why are you in such hot pursuit of it all the time?
I actually think that it gives me a purpose, because I find it very easy to become purposeless, which is why I fill up my time with so many things.
really, 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 really want to be senior school captain. And I know I do a lot of things, right? But I'm driven, right?
Sometimes don't you feel like you're chasing a moving goal line?
I know, but I don't know what not to do.
The hardest step is not the first or even the second. It is the 12,833rd step, because change is a marathon and you can't stop until you've reached the finish line.
Now, this is my life plan.
This is all for university and beyond.
Well, yes. Oh, yes. So here's uni. There's my gap year. That's my law school. You see, I article at the UN. I write my third book here. I begin my campaign for Prime Minister. I'm elected to serve 2 5-year terms. I write my fourth book, which is an autobiography, here at 53. And then I retire, take care of self, paint, and write poetry.
So you want to be Prime Minister?
Heck yeah, either that or the ambassador to the United Nations.
So it's been a very confusing summer. I'm not school captain, which is hard to say.
Tell me where you think your self-worth comes from.
Throughout all of high school, I invested all of myself. Like, at the expense of my mental health, I did everything that I didn't even like. It's absolutely ridiculous how absolutely awful I felt, because so much of my self-worth was attached to it.
That's all internal. Is that maybe where self-worth should come from? If you get it from external sources, you're giving it all away.
In my head, I've always told myself, like, I'm destined for absolutely incredible things. But after I lost the school captaincy, like, a part of it broke where I was like, well, maybe you're supposed to be average. I feel like when I tried to come to peace with it, I lost a part of me that's, like, super driven. Like, now I just do stuff because I do stuff, not because I like it or want to do it.
He likes to refer to Abby and me as like disruptions. He said, I cannot understand how you think it's okay to have so many disruptions for Rachel and Ryan. When you were their age, there were none of these disruptions. And I was like, are you kidding me? Explain to them at this age, because they're exactly our age, why mommy and daddy won't live together anymore. And I was just like, explain to them how big that disruption is, like, before you want to even get started about adolescents fighting and pushing back against their parents. Like, that's natural. That's a normal stage of life. Try telling them why their parents won't live together, and then get back to me about disruptions. I felt really proud. And then it ended on that. And then I walked downstairs.
So it's been pretty crazy. And it's been an emotional roller coaster and a half, just to say the very least. I got rejected from every Ivy League university. I got rejected from Brown, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. I got rejected from all of them.
Think there's a life lesson here?
I mean, I'm stronger now than I would have been in the past, because I've failed before, and I've learned that I survive if I can keep going. But make no mistake, I did spend a night on a roof in Hawaii eating little chocolate almonds from the chocolate almond can. But the difference is I was disappointed and not devastated. And that, to me, is change.
Welcome to our 23rd closing and our 19th graduation ceremony.
I'm graduating this year, and ironically, I cleaned house at the award ceremony. I got to speak at the ceremony firstly, which was amazing.
The Rusk Lions Debate Cup recognizes a grade 12 team who has made the greatest contribution to our debate and public speaking programs. Congratulations to Emily Hardy and Vivian Zhang for their impressive season. The PVG Tuition Awards for Academic Excellence, Emily Hardy, grade 12 English and AP Human Geography, Emily Hardy.
Like a powerful gust of west coast wind, Emily can speak at speeds of over 100 words per minute. These gusts can overpower her opposition in a debate, leaving them wind-whipped and battered, yet she can also speak softly, lyrically, like a refreshing spring breeze. A wonderful, wordsmithical woman, Emily Hardy.
In order to say that being school captain didn't actually matter that much, it meant that everything that I did to get to there wasn't worth as much. It didn't really matter that much. So in a weird way, it's made me feel like achievement doesn't matter that much. But then what that's kind of left is a hole I'm still working to fill on actually what does end up mattering if like achievement doesn't matter. So maybe that's a good pivotal point. That's like good growth or whatever. You're smiling.
You think?
When you've awakened your soul, you awaken the beast, the fighter, the beautiful burning creature within yourself. That is how you evolve.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed an incredibly intimate look into my life. Oh, good. Rick's back. Rick's back.
Hello.
Okay. Is that good? You got me.
Yes.
Okay. So sorry. Not this are the forces of evil trying to interrupt us here, Emily. So sorry. Well, as Doug said, we own nothing more valuable than our own story. And so the 5,000 Days Project is all dedicated to helping kids realize that they're actually the author of it. And I have a series of kids around the world, interview once a year. And the goal being not only to create a perfect time capsule of them growing up, answering a lot of key life questions, both for themselves and their parents, but mostly to help kids find themselves before they lose themselves, to help kids answer that ultimate question, which is, who in the world am I? And by answering that question, then become more resilient and self-aware and build their emotional intelligence, which has been identified by brain science as actually the key to academic success, not IQ, EQ. And so anyway, it was 7 years ago when I met Emily and invited her into the project. And she is just extraordinary in every way. And I miss you so much, Emily. I haven't seen you for a year, but we did have a conversation. Emily's actually opted to continue through college with the 5,000 Days Project. But it's the thing that I'm most knocked out by with Emily is just her authenticity and her total lack of pretense and her complete emotional honesty. Being able to just share on that level is so rare and so moving and informative. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Emily. First question I'd like to ask you, Emily, is this is a year on now. What's it like looking back at that? What are your thoughts?
It's interesting, Rick, because I've seen the film a couple of times now, and it's really interesting, like watching the movie back when I'm at different points in my life, whether or not it's like a high point or a low point. I identify with different parts of the journey more. Right now, I would definitely not say I'm at a peak. I think that a lot of people understand that COVID has really changed the way in which we can interact socially and really engage with, academia and school and normal life. And that to me has been really jarring. So when I watch back the narrative that you have created, which is beautiful, it ends so positively, but growth doesn't stop there. I didn't stop growing when I graduated high school or walked across that stage. Instead, I went to Georgetown, where it was a lot harder. And, I'm taking the LSAT right now, and that's very hard as well. And I feel like every time I watch it, I learn something new from it, and I'm constantly changing because I'm trying on these different hats of who I want to be and what I want from my life and what success looks like to me. But at the end of the day, although I changed, like the seeds of growth don't change. So who I am as a person remains consistent, even though the dreams, the goals, the quintessential, the cornerstones of like who I am don't change. Yet how I present myself may, or, the labels that I'm using to define my identity as do. So it's interesting to watch, especially in COVID, how much I didn't know then and how much I know now. And I think there's something just so cruel about how much you learn in hindsight that you just don't have in the moment. And all the times I wish I could have hugged myself when I was young and said, it's okay. Like, you do not need that mark on that science test. And do I make the same mistakes now? Sure. But it's interesting to watch that kind of growth.
We often, living our lives is, I often say it's like standing in front of a 100-foot oil painting of ourselves, and we're 1 foot away. And the process of verbal journaling is about stepping back, because all you see up close is the brushstrokes and the flaws. And so it was so good to be able to touch base with you. And we saw each other off and on throughout the year, of course, each year. But something I'd like to raise here, one of the major themes in your story is stress.
Yes.
And how it affected your life, and the stress you brought on yourself and the stress you felt externally. And I wonder if you can help us understand, primarily as parents and grandparents, what are the sources of stress on kids today that we probably don't understand?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I am very stressed as a person. I am very high strung. That is just a feature of who I am. I think, though, the most general form of stress that everyone, I think, experiences is the belief that not only is perfection attainable, but that it is easy to achieve that perfection. And so what I mean by that is the way, particularly with relation to social media, this persona of absolute edited perfection, it seems effortless. And it seems so beautiful and so easy for people who have success and who are successful to attain this level of success, and that it doesn't cost them anything to be this intelligent, this smart, this whatever skill it is, this good at whatever. And I think it has only been exacerbated by the presence of social media, because, we see all the good and we don't see the bad, and that obviously dilutes what we are able to compare ourselves to. I think our generation is bred in a way in which competition is it's so constant. You're comparing yourself perpetually to other people, and what you're comparing yourself to is not necessarily an accurate reflection of the other person. So you're comparing yourself on a metric that is distorted, and you can never win. So I think that ultimately that's what I would say, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, first and foremost, I think everyone needs to remember that perfection, like absolute complete perfection, is just not attainable in every aspect of your life. And yet, not only do I think that I should be perfect or that we should be perfect, but that it shouldn't be difficult to be perfect. And so when I am imperfect, all I ask is why? And it seems like it's a personal failing. And yet, all of these people that I'm comparing myself to are not perfect, because you can't be. I think that's been a huge source of stress for me. But I also think that regardless of whether or not your focus is academics, arts, sports, it's that same degree of comparison that is so difficult and ultimately perpetuates a stress culture that is very prevalent and pervasive at Georgetown.
What's the answer?
I didn't prepare an answer to that question, Rick. That was a curveball. I don't know, because I'm just as guilty as the rest of them. You know, like I am so guilty. I mean, personally, I don't have social media anymore. I have to. I can't. It's too unhealthy for me. Because
you gave it all up?
yes, or I delete the apps, and as long as they're not on my phone, they're gone. It's too problematic for me. I can't deal with it.
But what about all those perfect friends on Facebook that are having just a perfect time all the time?
I know, Rick, exactly. It's easier. You have to not see them. You can't see them, because that's all I got, Rick, because everything else, when I compare myself in person, I still do that. But when you remove the element of social media and this altered version of it's effortless perfection that I think is the most problematic, because perfection is not, and by no means will ever be, effortless. So I think it's just, all I got is you got to delete the apps, because that is what is a huge driver, I think, of the amount of stress that I experienced.
Okay, 2 questions. Is perfection attainable?
No. But I mean, I say that not believing it. So no, I don't think perfection is actually attainable. Would I like to achieve perfection? Of course.
Okay, is perfection desirable?
Yes, but it shouldn't be. I don't know. When we talk about perfection, it's a bit of an oxymoron in the way in which it depends on the type of perfection you want to achieve and what you want out of your life. I think a life lived without imperfection is a life in which you didn't make mistakes. And if you didn't make mistakes, then you couldn't have learned. So I guess no, I changed my answer. I guess no, perfection is not 100% desirable. Even if I consciously would like perfection, I don't think that would produce a life in which I experienced fulfillment.
When I watch your film, it reminds me of having known you for 8 years. And what draws me to you is your imperfections.
How fun.
What makes you endeared to me is your imperfections. I can admire your perfections, because you certainly are good at a whole variety of things. And I'm kind of excited for you to become either prime minister or the UN ambassador or whoever you choose to be. But is it really desirable? I mean, because what we really all want is connection. And if connection comes, as Doug often says, as a result of us sharing our vulnerabilities versus our perfections, is perfection desirable?
I assume no. I assume the correct answer to this question is no, because I think it's what I'd have to default to what I said before. I think imperfection means that you've tried other things, or you've gone out and you've tried. It makes me think of the lawyers who only take the cases they know they're going to win. And that is not a life, in order to claim that perfect record. That to me is not a life worth living, because you only ever live and experience in your comfort zone. So no, I think what you need is to experience imperfection. And I guess it's not desirable in an entirety. It's not desirable.
I have been waiting forever to use my favorite quotation by Clarence Darrow. in which he said, you know, he's the greatest trial lawyer of the last century, did the Scopes monkey trial, Loeb Leopold. And he said, I spent the first half of my career losing cases I should have won because I wasn't good enough. And the second half of my career, winning cases I should have lost because I was so good. So in the end, justice was done. I love the concept of the beauty of imperfection. And I think I may have told you this story before, but we had our house rebuilt a while ago. And the desire was, the main body of the house was built in 1915. And it was, when I got married, we turned it into a big family house. And the ambition was to make it look like it was built in 1915. Well, we happened to get this builder who was the most honest, dear man I've ever met, who also was dyslexic, seriously dyslexic, had difficulties reading, but had real difficulties doing a straight line. And so our house is filled with curves. Like you look down the ceiling and it's like a little bit like this. It's not bad, it's not dangerous. It's just filled with imperfections. And in the end, that's what I love about our house. And that's what sells it as a 1915 house. So inadvertently, it all came together due to imperfection. So I've learned to love imperfection. If you would change anything about the story you've seen, what would it be?
I mean, you can't change anything. I mean, I truly believe, I'm a true believer in radical acceptance. And so if I was to ever undo a component of my life, I would have to undo the events that transpired from what happened and led me to the person that I am now. Are there things that I wish had gone differently from a very selfish perspective? Of course. Like had I, if I wish I'd gotten acceptance to, a dream school, of course I wish I'd had that.
Oh, you did?
Yes. But I love Georgetown, Doug. I love Georgetown. Don't get me wrong. That's where I'm headed with this. But I couldn't, had that happened, I would never have gone to Georgetown. And the people I've met and the connections I've made and the success I've experienced and the identity that I have formed and all of these things that have created who I am now, like in the status quo, in this moment in my life, could never have happened if any of those had been different. And so you can't change anything, even, no matter how badly you want to. I mean, if the genie came and said, you can undo any of these events, I don't believe that I could, because I just don't believe that that's a way to live your life, wishing you could have undone these things. Like, I don't wish I could have undone anything. Because that would change who I am now. And am I perfect? Absolutely not. But I like who I'm becoming, and I am prepared to work on that and work for that. But no, you can't change anything. Yeah.
This whole pursuit of perfection or success and the stress that it brings is motivated by a need, a desperate need, a hole to fill in your soul.
Yes.
Looking back at your story, what is that hole? Like, what created that? And when you talk about, most of us have experienced some childhood trauma, and which forms who we are. What's yours here?
Well, I hope everyone's very excited to get to know the deepest, darkest parts of my personality. My childhood trauma is very much related to my parents' divorce and my relationship with my dad, and really needing that external validation to compensate for the fact that I felt neglected and abandoned. I'm sorry that that is so heavy and dark. I do a lot of therapy to to try and find other things to fill that hole with. Ultimately, I think that that's part of the reason why I am so drawn to this like elusive perfection that is never attainable, because you can't fill these holes left by childhood trauma with anything that's material. I think that a lot of successful people have experienced hardship or adversity in whichever form that it takes. And usually we compensate, or they compensate for whatever that made them feel like they were lacking in themselves, whether it was, you know, blaming yourself for for my parents' divorce, or, you know, the new family that came about, which I love and a part of it. Don't get me wrong, I love both of my parents deeply. But it created this vacuum of self-worth that I was constantly and still am trying to fill materialistically. But the most important, the most significant learning moment is those kinds of wounds, quote unquote, are not things that can be bandaged or fixed by anything but internal reconciliation, internal growth, internal acceptance. And so I think that I'm not alone in that, because I know that it's a huge thing, and I'm sure there's so many people in this room listening to this conversation who know exactly what their answer would be to that same question, because I think a lot of the things that we feel like we're lacking growing up, or things that we're missing in our lives, we try and fill and compensate and fix. And that does not come from anything beyond yourself and beyond your own understanding of, sorry, I'll get distracted and I won't loop it back. But no, I think at the end of the day, it's understanding that the most defining moments of your identity, and the things you feel like you're lacking, are only things that can be satisfied by internal things and internal worth and growth. Yes, so that is.
Thanks for sharing something so intimate there. I so appreciate that. And it's really directly in theme with a masterclass yesterday with Peter Buffett, who's Warren Buffett's son. And the whole point Doug makes in his book through that story is that we are all born into someone else's story. And you are born into your parents' story. And at some point, you have to make that completely your own story. And what we're witnessing in your film is you getting certainly a significant part of the way there. And what I've witnessed in the last year, and I wish we'd actually been able to edit in more from the interview you and I had, coming to the realizations you've just expressed today, you're getting closer and closer, completely forming your own. Because I know your parents. I know how incredible they are. I know how successful they are. And I know how much they love you. And I also know how hard it is for you to communicate with your dad. I just know that whole and that, and how the toll that takes on you. And while, my wish for you is that at some point there's a coming together, my advice to you is that you can't wait for that moment. You got to take your own story and run with it. And once you realize you've got all the goods, everything it takes, and it's there on screen in spades to fill that hole. I just think you're one of the most incredible people I know. And I'm just so grateful for you sharing
Thank
this.
you, Rick.
I would love to open this up to other people. We have 14 minutes. So any other questions from anybody else for Emily?
I'd just like to make a statement, Emily. I felt like I was listening to my daughter. And,
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter was a high school All-American swimming, Naval Academy, and she never felt like she was good enough. And it's always, in our case, a strong family dynamic though, but it was living in the Southern California bubble. I'm not fit enough. I'm not pretty enough. She was the third fastest swimmer on the best swim club in California, but she wasn't the fastest swimmer. And always pushing. And she's 25 now, and still it's all hitting her hard. And she's early in her career and trying to figure it all out. So I applaud you for your courage for coming to speak in a group like this. It takes tremendous courage. And the fact that you're doing that already bodes very, very well for your future. So anyway, I can relate, what's the one thing you wish your father had said to you, I guess, is one question early on.
My relationship with my father is very complicated. There's a couple things I wish he would have said. I think, now this is an exercise that I have learned through therapy. And it's sitting down and writing out, you are enough times that you believe it. And it's interesting because you say it once and nope, I can hear it here, but you can't feel it here. But at a certain point, after the 30th time or 40th time of writing out, you are enough, your brain gets tired of rejecting it and would almost like to accept it just so you can finish the exercise and move on with your day. And it's a really interesting way of normalizing the concept that you are enough. So I would recommend that to your daughter because, oh, do I understand that you're the third best swimmer, but you're not the first, and how absolutely awful it feels because you're working so hard and you feel like you're just not there and you're just not good enough. It's practice and it's repetition and it's hugging someone and saying, I love you for your imperfections and for the fact that you are not perfect, but what you are is enough. And making that delineation between perfection and being enough and worthy of love. And you can be worthy of love even if you are not perfect. That's all. That's what I would say.
Wow. Someone else?
Thank you.
Yeah, Emily, I think that again, outstanding. And I think every child should see what you went through because like you said, once people realize they're not alone, I think that helps. I had 2 daughters and my oldest one got everything up until even through high school. And then she had a very, very hard time. She only applied to one school and got William and Mary, put everything on the line and hated it. And had her breakdown in college.
Yeah.
And I kept telling her, that was the best thing that could have happened to you, Charlotte. You just don't understand. And she was like, Mom, what are you smoking? This, my whole But it took her 3 months and a lot of therapy to really we had to pull her from school because it got dangerous. And it just turned her life around. And she's 29 now and, just doing amazing things. But there is that, what happens when you get everything you want? I mean, and this was her, it's not us giving her anything. She beat herself up every day. She had to have better grades. She had to have better everything. And I remember when she was applying for William and Mary and we were like, just push the send button. And it was like this whole dramatic thing. And she yelled at us and she's like, this is my life you're talking about, and so you go from that drama. And my younger daughter, who wasn't like that at all, just kind of took it as it came. It just brought a lot back to me when you were sharing that. And I don't know how your younger sister is. Is she more chill? Is she, because I am
yes.
now. And they actually get along well, just so you know, they're 29 and 25. And it's amazing to watch how they blended. Now.
That's the same gap between me and my sister, actually.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I can feel that. I can feel the pain of this is everything you've ever thought you wanted on paper. And then it's not. And then what do you do in the space in between? Wow. Yeah. No, that would have been so unimaginably difficult. Yeah.
So your sister and you are, again, she was pretty chill too growing up?
Yes, Abby goes with the flow a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it'll be a nice blend, you'll see. Thank you again. This was very, very courageous. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Someone else?
Doug, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Hi, Emily. That was terrific. It's all your Georgetown training. I love it.
Yes, Georgetown.
So Emily, here's my question. I think you really had the courage, that E.E. Cummings quote, to be nobody but yourself in the world that's trying to make you everybody but yourself is the bravest thing you could ever do. I mean, you're really brave because you said, I'm not going to be defined by social media. But the fact is, we are in a crazy culture now where social media is shaping everything, and it's such a dishonest picture. And I understand now there's all these apps you can use to make yourself look different and do all this crazy, crazy stuff. And so what do we do? Do you think there might be a rising up of people saying, this is not good. This is toxic, damaging, and is making us miserable because it's so damn dishonest. So do you think there's a possibility there could be an uprising where people are saying, I don't want to be a part of this anymore? Like you were brave enough to do it. I don't know if many people are, though.
See, it's interesting, Doug, actually. I think it's a collective action problem because when you talk to individuals, I can't name one person who actually thinks social media, well, I can name like a handful, 5, who actually think that social media is productive or improves their happiness. No one thinks that it does. I doubt that a lot of people here even think that social media, wasting an hour on Instagram when you could have spent it with your kids or your parents or your family. I don't think anyone actually genuinely believes that social media improves your quality of life. And yet what we have is a world of people who are too scared to be conscious of missing out. That they need to be on social media because everyone else is on it. So I think it's interesting. I don't know, Doug, if it comes naturally. I think it's either by an intervention of some kind, like an external force, or creating social media that you can, I don't know. I don't think you can ever create social media that is more honest, not with the technology that exists right now. But see, if everyone could just give it up, no one would ever want it. Like, I just genuinely think that if no one was on it, we would have no problem. But the fact that everyone is perpetuates this problem. And I mean, it's just like any collective action problem. I mean, those are almost impossible to solve, right? I don't know. It's interesting, but I think very few of us actually enjoy social media.
What if everybody just got real? I mean, Facebook, that's been the goal of 5,000 Days Project, to sort of be the anti-Facebook, for people to tell their truth, not project something that's not right. Is there an appetite for that?
We're too scared. It's too scary to be real, and it's too scary to be vulnerable. It's funny because when we did this project, Rick, you said I should post it on my social media account, and I didn't, right? Like I don't mind talking to a room full of people here, but the fact that I would never put it on a social media account because I think it is too vulnerable and it is too exposing and it's too raw for that kind of platform for me to ever put out there for fear of judgment. I think that social media is not a platform that's designed for honesty. And I think that while that continues, the appetite for being real isn't there, because that's not what the role that social media fulfills. It's not about being real. I see a question in the chat from Jennifer. What's the best advice you can give your 11-year-old self? It's interesting, actually. I like this question because I've spent a lot of time reflecting on all the things I wish I could have told my younger self. And it's not necessarily a word or a saying. I just wish so desperately that I could have gone back in time and just given little baby Emily a hug, because there were a lot of tough nights and there was a lot of tough times where I felt really alone and like I wasn't good enough. And I wish I could go back and say, hey, it's gonna be okay. I can tell you, I can guarantee that the near future it's fine. It's going to be good. And just really it's a hug. I would way rather give a hug than words, because I'm a huge hug person. And, you know, there was times like I could have needed it.
Hey, by the way, Emily, a commercial. I have not seen it. I know Dar's seen it and a bunch of other people, but this film, The Social Dilemma.
My dad told me I have to watch it.
Yeah, I would commend it to all of us, because it's all the founders of all these amazing companies who started out idealistic that Facebook and all these things were going to change the world for the better. They feel like they unleashed a monster and they don't know what to do. That's my sense of the movie, of the documentary. And I think it's just something we all need to pay attention to and know about.
That makes sense to me, because I think it was a monster. I mean, when we talk about Mark Zuckerberg, the original algorithm for Facebook, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of what it was built on, but I think that there were really noble intentions about social media and the internet and creating a community, a global community in which there are, to lessen the gaps of privilege and oppression in a really interesting way, and just try and create this equality of access and fluid communication. There were noble intentions, but it just devolved. At some point we got lost. And it's a beast. And I believe that it will run a course on its own that is completely devoid of their original intentions, because the technology has just been made and it can be harnessed in so many different ways. Yeah, I really don't know. I think the future of social media is really interesting. I have no idea where it goes, but yeah, no, it's such an interesting intellectual pondering event just to think about what it means.
Yeah.
Emily, I don't have a question, but I just want to honor and just say that I am just so gracious for your vulnerability that you even chose to share here, because I understand what that's like to even take something like what you're sharing and putting on social, because it does open up to a lot of different people and things and peers. But I just want to say thank you for taking the steps that you continue to choose and share your vulnerability, and never ever let anyone dull your light. And you are enough, and you are beautiful, and the way you articulate yourself and have shared is just so beautiful. So never ever stop that, and keep leading the way for other of our youth to be able to see you taking this stance and speaking up.
Thank you so much. You're so sweet.
And you had on the end of that video, you had a place where all your poems were. Can you let us know what that is again? I'd love to read your poems.
Yes, you can. I have a book actually, so you can.
Of course.
It's on Amazon. If you look up "Phoenix" by Emily Hardy, it's a red cover. That's me, and it's really non-traditional poetry. I write a lot better now, but it was a good point in life. It was fun.
Hey, Emily, did you write "Sail Away" or was that another poem?
Oh, that was me. That was me. Yeah, that was the poem
That's awesome. I want to use that in my class. I love that. Oh my God.
We'll pull all those things together and share them with all of you in the notes. So Emily, I'll connect with you after this and get that.
Wow. Sail Away. Oh my word. Love it.
Emily, thank you so much. Thank you so much this time. I'm conscious of everybody's time and want to make sure that we wrap it appropriately. Doug, did you want to wrap it up? Or?
No, I just want to say, Emily, that was great. We say in Path North that our point of connection with each other is not our strength, but our weakness. And when we connect on that basis, there's so many possibilities, because everyone, never compare your insides with someone's outsides. We all are lost. We're all trying to figure out, as Freud called it, the riddle of life. And you've helped us by just daring to be vulnerable, daring to be have lots of questions, and to just let us see you. So thank you. You're great. You've enriched us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been such an honor.
Well,
so just to jump in, yes,
yeah.
with a few upcoming events. Let me just share my screen here. So we're going into a busy time. So next Thursday, September 24th, we'll gather our Orlando-based Path North members. You all should have received an invite. I'll be following up with you all this week, but I do hope you can join us 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, September 24th. Tuesday, September 29th, our very own Coach Dar will be hosting her masterclass on meaning. I do hope you can sign up. If you have any questions or want to get registered for that, please contact Gloria. Wednesday, September 30th, we have a special community call with Dr. Michael Rich, interviewed by Adam Kaufman. Dr. Rich is an expert in how media affects child development. He's the first mediatrician in the country, and he serves as the director of the Centers on Media and Health at Boston Children's Hospital. So that will be mostly focused kind of on his work with social media and children, but specifically looking forward at this time of wellness, as a lot of us are digital. And then finally, upcoming on Monday, October 5th, we have our John and Margaret Dalton series on civility, where we'll be joined by two former US senators from Florida, Senator Mel Martinez and Senator Bill Nelson, one a Republican, one a Democrat, and they overlapped in the Senate in the 2000s. So we're excited to have their conversation and to really kind of dive into what a true example of civility looks like.
Great. Thank you all. This was great. Really
Thank you,
good.
everyone.
Good.
And thank you, Emily.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick, too.
Yeah, Rick, that was great. And if you sign up to let Rick interview you, it will change your life. Fantastic. Really, really good. Okay, bye.
Oh, good. We all
Bye,
don't
everyone. We'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Emily.